Okay, welcome to Community Center Building Committee meeting on June 10th, 2024. Under further, following the guidance issued by the state in 2020 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conference technology. To join the meeting by video conferencing using a computer, tablet, or phone, please go to the town website for login information under meetings and agendas. So I'll do a roll call of the committee members who are present. David Billings.
Yes.
Luciana Berti, I know, is not going to make it. Barry Goldman.
Yes.
Ruth Townsend.
Yes.
And of course, I am here as well. Okay, so our first order of business is approval of the minutes of May 8th, 2024. Are there any discussion? Is there any discussion on those minutes?
I just noticed a small thing that Barry was noted down as absent, but he's mentioned during the minute notes.
Oh, yes, I was there.
Yeah.
I'll attest to that.
And I think there was one point he was Gary, not Barry, but that's all I noticed.
Come on, Al.
That's my fault. So I'm sorry, Barry.
I mean, you had all the times that he put forward motions and his comments. That was brilliant. It was just according to it, he wasn't there to do that.
I can fix that easily.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion then, Ruth, of the edits, and then we can vote on that motion?
So make a motion to edit the minutes of May the 8th to correct that Barry was there, and to correct his name.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll poll the board. David Billings,
Yes.
Barry.
I think I'll vote for this.
Okay, okay, good. Thank you. Ruth.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Okay, so meeting minutes approved as amended. Thank you. Okay, now I'll turn the meeting over, this part of the meeting over to Al Estevez from Collier's Project Leaders, who is our owner's project manager.
Thank you, Dick, and thanks everyone for joining. Before I get started, I just want to quickly introduce Igli, a new face with Colliers. He's helping us with on-site representation and has a background in construction project management. So really happy to have him on board.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Igli.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. What's going to be your role? Are you?
So I'm going to be the on this on-site construction representative and also helping Al with the project management on the project.
Okay. Hi. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so I'll move right into construction progress. We had a big month during the month of May. At the Pavilion building, we completed the cross-laminated timber ceilings. You'll see a picture of that. The exterior sheathing was completed, as well as the window framing. At the gym and the connector building, we placed a slab on deck at the connector in the beginning of May. We've also completed the roof drains, the sunshades, as well as the air vapor barrier at the gym building. We've also completed the rough electrical at the gym. At the 1910 building, we've completed the wood strengthening of the structural members, as well as framing of the openings for the skylight, mechanical equipment, access, and rough framing at the attic. We've completed the slab on grade placement at the 1910 building. Foundation repointing is ongoing at the exterior foundation, as well as removal of the asphalt shingles. Since the end of May, additional progress includes installation of the insulation at the gym roof, installation of the stair one at the connector piece, rough HVAC electrical HVAC installation in the attic, and rough electrical at the pavilion roof. That was necessary in order to continue with the roofing. And upcoming activities, placement of the slab on grade, completion of the slab on grade at the 1910. We're going to talk about that. We have a PCO related to that. Framing of the raised flooring at the second floor of the 1910, as well as installation of the windows. Any questions on the construction progress? Okay, let's look at some photos. So looking at the pavilion building, the picture on the left shows what it looked like during the beginning of the payment period. And the picture on the right shows what it looks like as of last Tuesday. So you can see the sheathing is installed, window framing. And looking inside of the pavilion, yeah, it's a great space to be in. You can see the exposed CLT ceiling and the exposed structure. So it's a really nice high ceiling space, and it's really nice. It feels really nice with the skylight. And picture on the right is looking at the connector piece where the stair one was installed, which was after I took this picture. Looking at the gym, progress in May, like I mentioned earlier, installation of the air vapor barrier on the exterior. You can kind of see it on this picture. And you can also see some of the sunshade structural brackets going. Inside of the gym building, like I mentioned, all of the roof drains were installed, as well as the rough electrical for the light fixtures. Inside of the 1910 on the first floor, the slab on grade was placed, and they're working on the picture on the right. You can see some of the existing slab on grade that was going to be scarified and topped with a topping slab. We have a PCO related to that to essentially put a new slab instead of the topping slab. We'll go over that. And looking at the second floor of the 1910 building, at the beginning of the month, the slab on deck had not been placed. That was placed shortly after this picture was taken. And the picture on the right just shows some of the framing. In this case, it's for the skylight at the 1910 building. Any questions on the pictures? Okay, moving on to the schedule. I have a couple of updates. The first thing is that we have been working with town council. We had a couple of meetings with them, and their recommendation was to withhold a portion of the general contractor's general conditions for the month of May until a corrective plan is provided. M. O'Connor is currently working on that. And in addition to that,
Corrected schedule?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, corrected plan and recovery schedule.
Okay.
In addition to that, these are the milestones that were provided in their last schedule, where they're adding 59 days to their contract duration. And Colliers, we rejected the schedule because it's not in line with the contract duration. And M. O'Connor is currently working on a delay claim for a time extension, where they are looking at the contract requirements, including concurrent delays and other contract terms.
So this is beyond the days that we've agreed to.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions on the schedule?
Yeah, I
Is there a
think so.
timeline? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So
Sorry.
go ahead, David.
Is there a timeline that Connors is proposing to get back to you?
No, not for the contractor. They have not given me a timeline of when we should anticipate to have that delay claim. However, we are withholding their general conditions until that is provided.
Okay, how much of their general condition is it just for the scheduling?
No, it's
No.
not just for just for the scheduling. So we're basically withholding all of their general conditions except for the staff salaries. The total is around 57,000.
Okay.
So Al, just to, when I look at the schedule, when I look at the schedule as proposed by M. O'Connor, they're saying at this point, their current substantial completion is basically the end of November. So is that when the town can expect to start to utilize the building, or just start moving furniture in trying to get an idea now, according to this schedule, now with the understanding that there's a pushback on this schedule, but I'm just looking at this and saying, from what they're proposing, when would the town actually be able to start utilizing this building for town programs?
They potentially, the end of November would be when the town would be looking to move in. This date does not include any acceleration or recovery of the schedule.
Yeah,
Contractor may very well choose to absorb liquidated damages and essentially push the opening date towards closer to this date here. Of course, we're going to try to that we're waiting on the corrective plan where hopefully they can recover some of the time. But I think that potentially the end of November would be when the town can move into the building.
right, without taking into account any type of acceleration of schedule. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Just
All
wanted
right,
to.
let me just try to, this schedule is what is currently being proposed by M. O'Connell, or is this what we currently have?
This is
Um,
what was proposed by M. O'Connor without looking at any acceleration or recovery time, and this is the schedule that was rejected by Colliers because it's not in line with the contract duration.
Okay, no, yeah, okay, so this is what O'Connor is proposing. I understand we've rejected it, we're looking for backup to substantiate it. But if let's say they can substantiate it, so the current date for substantial completion based on what the contractor is saying is the end of November. That's when we get, a certificate of occupancy and we'd move in. So to exchange, I'd say it'd take about a month for punch list and everything else so that we could actually open the building to the public. So we're looking like New Year's
It's actually
based on this schedule.
Yeah, actually, so they're tracking substantial completion, like you said, the end of November, but they are tracking final completion towards closer towards the end of January.
So it'd be like beginning of February between, when everything's said and done.
Correct.
Okay, and we can run programs without having contractors there. Okay. All right.
And that, again, that was, again, without acceleration or recovery to the schedule, that's the end of February?
looks like
Looks like beginning of February, end of
Beginning
January.
of February, end of January, okay, beginning,
Yeah.
so February 1, let's say.
Mhm.
Okay, to start running the programs, okay.
Yep.
All right, I just wanted to get an understanding of that. Thanks, Al.
Sure. Anything else on the schedule? Okay, let's go to the budget. We had a couple of, in column B, we had a couple of transfers for change orders that were approved during the last building committee meeting. We have a total of 5 invoices. I'll go over what those are. We had a number of PCOs and potential PCOs that we've added to our risk log. That adds up to $527,000. I'll go over what those are in the next slide. And the big picture to be taken from this slide is that a worst case scenario, should all of the potential change orders and potential changes that we're aware of be approved as known, we're looking at a remaining total contingency of 67% or $1.6 million. You'll be able to see that in a little bit more detail in the next slide. Any questions?
So we're looking, the total risk at this point is 360,000.
360,000
for construction, and then there's other soft costs for 165,000 for a total of 529.
Correct.
Okay, and that leaves us with 1.6.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So looking at that in a little bit more detail, we have a number of PCOs that we want to present to the building committee for approval or recommendations. Those are highlighted in blue here. The ones in yellow are just new PCOs that were added to this log here. All of the potential change orders that we are going to be presenting for approval recommendation were reviewed by the design team, by Colliers. We went back and forth on most of these a number of times. Most of these were also reduced in cost. As an example, PCO number 25 for the water main connection, I believe that their initial price was around 66,000. We were able to looking at creative solutions with the team during one of the OACs. We were able to bring that down to around 30,000. That involved closing of Springdale Ave. So that was, thinking outside the box on ways to reduce cost. But most of these went back and forth a few times and asked for additional backup. And we feel that these PCOs are well supported and that the pricing is fair and reasonable, and we recommend that they be approved. So starting with, I'm not sure how much in detail you guys want to get into, but starting with PCO number 12, that's a relatively small number for 3,500. That is a coordination, falls under the coordination category. There were a few changes that were made to some of the outlets on the floor to be tamper resistant, as well as a couple other changes. Dick, how do you want to vote on each one of these separately, or should we go through them and vote?
Al, why don't we run through them? Why don't you run through them? And then depending on comments, then we can decide whether we want to vote as all of them together or start breaking them apart.
Sounds good. And I actually have a little bit more detail here from Katie. As part of the design team review of the fixture submittal, several fixtures were adjusted and the floor boxes were updated to be tamper resistant. So that falls under the coordination category. The next one is associated with the plumbing inspections. The construction team was working off of a permitted set of drawings. When the plumbing inspector came to the site, he had a couple of concerns, and as a result, we made some changes to some of the systems. This cost is for $3,000. That is for the contractor's self-performed cost to remove some of the vapor barrier and rebar that had already been installed, as well as to re-excavate some of that area. That's for $3,043.09. Similarly, the next.
Yeah, can we,
Go ahead.
the back, who's requiring to reinstall a backwater valve?
So
That was new, wasn't it?
That backwater valve was new. So when the plumbing inspector came to the site, one of his concerns was that the water backing up when it would drain to the grease trap. And so as a result, we went back to the engineering team. We had a backwater designed and installed. Plumbing inspector came back out and had some concerns with the maintenance of the backwater valve. So that backwater valve was then removed. And ultimately what happened is that the design as originally designed was ultimately approved by the plumbing inspector without any changes to the original design as it relates to the water backing up. So a little bit of back and forth on that one.
Yeah, I think it's also note that the design, the corrective design, the plumbing inspector rejected. The design team went back and came up with a plan, passed it over to the contractor, and the contractor's plumber applied for the permit. The permit was granted. And then during the inspection, the plumbing inspector then rejected the work. So even though it was permitted, it still was rejected. So I think that's important.
Well, the only way the inspector can reject it if it doesn't meet code. Right?
Yes,
the contractor's got to build it to code. Doesn't matter what the design is. Got to, this is a code issue.
I think the clarifying detail here is that the inspection was not failed. It was not passed. So you're correct. It wasn't a failed inspection. The inspector refused to pass the inspection and refused to offer any commentary. whether positive or negative, only to say that this was not a passing condition and wouldn't be accepted.
And his basis for, did he give you anything in writing? I mean, this is, I mean, I've dealt with plumbing inspectors. I know it can be tough, but
So, I mean,
you know,
the
this
short,
this just costing his town money.
correct. The short answer is that it's a long answer, but the short answer is yes, we did have a sit-down meeting, both with the plumbing engineer and with the plumbing inspector. We had a general understanding of the intent to go forward. We did get some documentation in writing of what the plan was. Unfortunately, that was then later not accepted. So you can see that's why Al has kind of, there's two line items, both for labor. But the resultant was, you know, at the end of the day, his concern was maintenance in the building. And like anything, nothing is ever warranted forever. Nothing is ever perfect. So the repeated concern was about maintenance. And so what did happen as
Okay.
part of the design was that a couple of lines went to the grease trap where they were previously gone to the
Yeah.
sanitary. That was the design had been approved. So I would say at this point, what we have is, you know, it's a better belt and suspenders. And yeah, I like I said, the short answer is it's a longer story, but we were a bit torn in that we didn't have a rejection, so we could not go for a variance. There were several other things that we pursued. Fortunately, we were able to, you know, have a meeting. Plumbing engineer stands by their design, and they said, "Yep, we believe that this is code compliant. We do not think that there's any problems with it." And so ultimately, that's what has been installed.
Okay.
Moving on to PCI number 15. Similarly, it's also related to the authority having jurisdiction. This one we discussed a couple of times already. This is associated with the drainage systems. We had the town engineer who came to the site and had a number of concerns with the approved storm drainage system. During the last building committee meeting, we approved a portion of those changes for 18,000 that was related
Yeah.
to some of the manholes. This one is associated strictly with the infiltration system. Since then, we have a price for it. This price was originally about $68,000. Since then, we met with $76,000. Since then, we met with Mike and Jerry, the town engineer, and we wanted to just go over the concerns. And now that we have a price on it, ultimately what it comes down to with this PCO is to add a headers to the infiltration system. And what it does is it helps the distribution of the storm drainage a lot better, and ultimately results in a system that will last a lot longer for the town. It's a betterment to the town. It's not a code issue, but it is a betterment to the town, and the cost is for $61,875.
Okay, I'm just looking at the plan. Are we adding a drain that goes out towards the back of the parking area?
Yeah, we're not,
Okay.
understand this, we're not adding a drain. We're taking the infiltration system, which is under where the
Yeah.
the playground area is going to be, or the
The lawn area, yeah.
yeah. It's that area, and it was the way the piping was originally designed. The town engineer came back and wanted the design of that altered. And that's what this is all about. So we didn't necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie or Al, but I don't believe we added any drains.
Well, now I'm looking at a clouded drain. I'm looking, let's see if I can see, I'm on plan C300. And it looks like there's an 18-inch drain that's going towards the fence and then dumping out into that swale. Has that always been there? Because we had a lot of conversations with the stories next door, and we do not want to be draining onto that swale.
Correct, David. So this hasn't changed as far as where the piping goes. You are correct that there were 2 drains that were added. Those 2 were approved during the first PCO in the last building committee meeting.
What, well, want to make sure that this is not impacting, the abutter at 12
So-
Whiting.
Yeah, David, to answer your first question, that drain that's on a diagonal, it used to just be
Yeah.
vertical. So there has been a drain, but the location in the lawn has changed primarily because of where the outlets are that are kind of on the right-hand side now. They were
Okay.
previously more in the middle. So part one,
Okay.
we didn't add a drain. But you can kind of see sort of towards the bottom, we have actually, there was an earlier PCO, probably predates me in the fall, where we did amend this area that where the French drain is called out. So there is some additional work that we have done as far as that daylighting scope. But to answer your question, that this has not been adding more to the scope. If anything, all of this conversation with the town engineer really was to do a better round of, I'll say, belt and suspenders, so that with duplicating these headers, we
Okay,
give it all, a level of efficiency, just to minimize the future, concerns about backing up or getting clogged.
all right,
Guys,
so we're not
okay.
adding any water, we're not
Yes.
adding anything there, it's going to the abutter. Because that's a very steep slope going down there, so we're gonna make sure there's. Yeah, it's an emergency overflow, let's say.
So, Mike and Jerry, the town engineer, brought this up, thinking of dumping or the water outletting on this property, on the storage property, and his
Yeah.
concern about that.
Yes,
And
So
he,
am I.
and because of that concern, he was saying a header should be added to how the water flows into this whole drainage system and how it outlets. So he was,
Okay.
he was approaching this with that concern.
Okay, good, all right.
So yeah, that's PCO. Like I said, we started at around 76,000, and we're working with the contractor. We're able to bring the price down to 61,875. The next one that we're looking to, it's associated with 14, but like I mentioned, there's 2 pieces to that. That's for $3,000 associated with the plumbing inspections. The next one that we're looking at is the water main connection at Springdale Avenue. This is the one we started at around 60 something thousand, and we're able to bring it down to 30,000. That is to tap into the town's water main. There's 2 mains on Springdale. Initially, we were tapping into the closer one to the project. However, in discussing with the town, and that's what had been approved in the plans. It's tapping into the one closest to the building, and talking to the town. It looks like they want to tap instead into the town's water main. It's the town's infrastructure that is on the other side of the street, and the cost is to add that section of piping, cut additional cutting, trenching of the street, steel plates, and closing the street down, shutting the street down for 3 days.
We're gonna shut Springdale down for 3 days?
Correct.
That seems very extraordinary. I've done a lot of water work. You don't need to usually shut one lane at a time. And this is being requested by Aquarian?
No, actually the town. Carl, can you weigh in on this?
I mean, the town doesn't have a water line, it's all Aquarian.
And Carl is equipped to, he has the knowledge on this.
The town's water main presently in the infrastructure in the square is on the opposite side of Carroll on Springdale. The thought was when they initially did the plans, they were tapping on to Aquarian's main, which is not owned by the town. We are presently looking at infrastructure to upgrade the system for some recommendations from our study committee. In my mind, and a few other people that I've spoken to, because it's a town building, they should tap onto the town system. If we ever got our own water source, we could get away from Aquarium completely. Their water rates, the whole 9 yards, and we'll have our own water supply. So it's prudent that they tap on for a town building to the town's water mains, not Aquarium's water mains. That's the short of it.
Okay, I didn't know that the town had a water line. I mean, I would love to get rid of Aquarium, but,
We have a complete, we have an infrastructure in the square that services about 69 customers, including all the town buildings.
okay.
So
Very
in a
good.
great scheme of things, David, it makes sense to tap onto the town's water main, which is
Yeah.
an additional 25 feet away.
Okay. Don't disagree.
Any more comments on this PCO?
You might want to tell them that it's going to be T&M, not to
Oh.
exceed.
Thank you, Carl. I was totally gonna forget that. So our recommendation would be to proceed, recommend approval of this PCO on a time and material basis.
Because basically, going back, David, to your comment of taking 3 days to basically install an extra 25 feet of line seemed to be exorbitant.
Yeah, it's gonna make a mess of the square.
And there were discussions about shutting down one lane at a time and doing it, or would it be more cost effective if the street were shut down? And it was determined that if the street was shut down, it would be more cost effective. Did check with the town and the police department, and they are all okay with that. So they're on the,
Okay,
Al, correct me if I'm wrong, they're on the fence whether it would be 2 days or 3 days. So they're defaulting to the 3 days. We're saying, well, we don't think it should take 3 days. We think in reality, it's only going to take whatever 2 days, or the design, all the consultants and everybody's thinking that. So the recommendation would be to do a T&M not to exceed.
What,
Okay.
do we know roughly when this date's going to be? When's it going to be, Al?
Yeah, it's gonna be after July 4th.
Do you know,
Probably maybe the
do we know
second-
like days of the week or anything? Can we?
It'll probably be a Monday or Tuesday. I wouldn't suggest them opening the road up. on
Carl, we
Tuesday.
can't hear you.
I said it'll most likely be a Tuesday or a Wednesday, second week in July at some point.
Yeah,
At
that sounds like good
time,
time.
it's gonna be, the road's gonna be closed for a whole day. And it basically, it'll just speed their time up.
Still gonna
Instead of-
divert around Whiting? Is that the idea?
Yes,
All right.
Is there any
That's-
way of doing it on a Monday? I'm just thinking that more people may have taken the long weekend.
it could be a Monday. We haven't got a firm date yet.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure that it makes the least amount of impact on
Yep.
the residents and people driving through, which I'm sure you guys are too.
It's very easy to divert both sides down different ways around the square.
We could, Al, we can speak to Chris Costello and he can get some information out to warn people about it.
We're gonna
Good idea.
also put an electric billboard sign up a week or so beforehand. to
Great,
notify commuters and residents.
lovely, thank you.
Okay. Next one is associated with the,
Excuse me, just sorry to interrupt, but did PCO 22 CCD?
Thank you.
General
I totally skipped over that one. Yeah, so that one was presented during the last building committee meeting. And there were 2 comments. One of them was, there was a comment about trying to get an invoice, not just from the insurance agency, but from the carrier themselves. That's something that M. O'Connor, we asked M. O'Connor and they said that they're not able to get that invoice, that the insurance agency, the Sanctis, is not able to get that invoice from the carrier. There was another comment, and I can
Yeah.
pull this up. There
Yeah,
was
it's on the
another-
builder's risk.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, so what we have is we do have this quote from the insurance agency that they said it's going to cost $10,667 to extend the policy by 1 month. That was presented during the last building committee meeting. That's for the builder's risk. And during the last meeting, the other comment was the other invoice for what M. O'Connor is paying for the overall insurance for the project was for the bonding, not for the builder's risk. So that was my mistake. This is the invoice for the builder's risk, and it shows that they paid $137,000, 100 for the duration of the project. So that is in line with the cost to extend the policy by 1 month.
okay.
Any other questions on that one?
Is their best and final, I take it, after 4 months?
Yes.
Okay.
So are we accepting their no invoice position?
Barry, I would recommend approval of this. They have a backup from the insurance agency. From the way I understand it from M. O'Connor is that they're not, the way that it works with the Sanctus is they have to extend it by 3 months. So they have to pay 3 times this amount, and then that's the minimum, and then they'll get reimbursed at the end of the project for the other 2 months.
Okay. Well, it looks like they're using a very expensive insurance carrier, by the way, because it's a surplus line. I saw a surplus lines tax on the other quote just now. And that means it's a tax that has to be charged by a company that's not admitted in Massachusetts, which would be indicate that they couldn't place the risk with an admitted company. So that would be a surprise. I mean, I don't think that building is a particular risk. That would have much greater cost using a surplus lines company than an admitted company. So you may want to ask them why they're using a surplus lines company.
Yeah, Barry, I know in the beginning of the project, they had a really hard time getting builder's risk insurance. They had to reach out to a number of people, and fortunately, they were able to find one, which is the Sanctus. And I know they took a big hit on that one. They had not budgeted for $137,000 for builder's risk. I think what they had in their SOB was $30,000.
Right, that sounds more standard. Well, it sounds like we're paying extra for whatever is going on, either in the insurance world or maybe the claims that they've been putting in themselves.
Yeah.
So you never know unless you're actually talking to the insurance carrier, which I guess they're not letting us do. So we'll take your advice on that. I don't see any other alternative.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's not that the contractors like not letting us talk to their carrier. It's just that the Sanctus is not, they cannot get an invoice from the carrier. So what we have is from their insurance agency, the Sanctus.
Yeah, okay, well, guess there's not much to do about it then.
And that was for 10,000 of the 56.
Right.
That is correct. Dave. Yeah. Okay. The next one that we have is with the overflow drains. Let's see the comments that I have here. That is what we consider to be a coordination issue. So Katie, I'm just reading your notes here, unless you want to jump in. So there were 11 roof drains and overflow drains that were specified in the drawings as the same model number. The plumber flagged this, and the cost is associated to install the drain base for the overflow drain so that it can actually function as an overflow drain instead of a normal drain. That's for $3,944. The next one that we have is PCO number 29. That is to add an LVL. This is hidden conditions. We needed a triple LVL about 12 foot long to be installed between the at the 1910 building near the connection to the new building, and that is for $4,880.82. We looked at all of the backup on that one. Actually, this came down from about $7,600. And the last one that we want to present for recommendation approval is for $23,721, and that is an unforeseen conditions. The existing, so in the design, the original design, there was a portion of the slab at the 1910 building that was going to be new slab where you had new underground plumbing work for the new layout. And then the remaining slab on grade was going to remain. The only thing that was going to happen with that, it was going to be scarified, and then it was going to get a topping slab essentially. What happened is that slab is not really like a slab on grade. It, as I understand it, is multiple layers of like a rat slab. It's not the quality of it. The quality of it is not. It's just not a good quality slab on grade to put a topping slab on it. And so the recommendation is to just remove it and put a new slab on grade similar to the rest of the basement or the first floor in the 1910 building. And the cost for that is $23,721. It's unforeseen conditions. It's also a betterment for the town. It's a much, there's no risk with a new slab. You know what you're getting versus this slab. They had a lot of issues when they were scarifying it, where I guess chunks were coming off. It's just not a good. We don't know what it was. The strength was of the concrete when they placed it. It just doesn't look like it's going to hold very well over time. Any questions on that one? What we are proposing on this one is we believe that there may be an opportunity to reduce this cost a little bit. What we were thinking is to approve this as a not to exceed of $23,721 while we work out the details and see if we can get that down a little bit more over the next week or so.
I'll just add in to say that part of this final number is some pluses and some minuses. So the contractor has put in a credit, so we owned a certain amount of moisture mitigation, so we had some Ardex product. We will still need some, basic leveling, to receive the new flooring. But as far as the scope, I mean, this does a lot of things. This definitely expedites the schedule. This really helps the contractor in many ways to be able to just, get this clean with a new slab. They did have some concerns with if they were to try to do an Ardex or similar product, that the existing substrate just wouldn't support it. That either potentially it would not be warrantyable, or we would just, it would really take, it's more of a time component here. So as Al said, there are some credits here as part of the scope that we owned, but we do think that we may be able to have them sharpen their pencils a bit on this. And I will add, they also mentioned at the end of last week that, they said if they can get notifications, so we have our OECs on Tuesday morning, if this gets approved tonight and they can, have the conversation tomorrow, that they could potentially be pouring the slab by the end of the week. So I think that's the part where, we got this PCO, I think at 4 o'clock on Friday. We don't normally review them that quickly. And that's also the reason why we're saying this is not a plus or minus, but potentially a minus, because I think there's probably a little bit more scope to look at that. But we know the contractor is anxious to get it moving because that will release a lot of other work. So, this is one that we wanted to at least bring up today, so it's not pushing it off for another month. But we think it's, you know, something definitely to consider.
Thank you, Katie. And if there's no other comments, that's what we have for the PCOs that we reviewed, and we feel we recommend that they be voted on for approval.
Okay, recommend for approval to the selectmen. The motion would be to approve PCOs 12, 14, 15, 19, 22, 25, 28, 29, and 32 as presented, with the exception of PCO 25, which would be done on work would be performed on a T&M basis, not to exceed $30,751.85. And with the exception of PCO number 32, which work to be performed and would not exceed $23,721.09. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I will poll the board, vote for approval to, to recommend for approval to the selectmen. David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Okay, thank you, Al.
There's a couple other PCOs here that I highlighted in yellow. We're still very much working on this. Some of these are placeholders where I just put a number in. We don't have an actual PCO for those.
What's the change in exterior siding? I mean, is that a design change? I'm just kind of curious what's
Katie, I'm gonna need help on
driving.
this one.
Yep, sorry, I had
What's
myself muted.
driving that?
It's siding is probably not the right description for this. So there were a couple of things that related to the canopy. So there's a canopy both at the south entry and at the north
Yeah.
entry. Really, it's detailing. So it's you know, it's not
Okay.
necessarily, it's not new materials. But as part of that, we did look at the canopy on the south elevation, which is quite a bit deeper. So, and what we had was a standard rigid insulation. Looking at that and keeping that all insulated, it got very tall. So we opted to do a closed cell insulation in that area alone, which kind of
Okay.
eliminated a lot of other components. As Al said, this is one that has a lot of different pieces in it. The building is not being recited. It's not a design change in that context.
Okay.
But there are a number of different subs that have all kind of have a page in this.
Okay.
Any specific, I don't know if I should go through all of these, but if there's any specific comments to these, I can certainly go over those a little bit more in more detail. And like I said, we're still working on those and the pricing. Moving on to the right side, not much has changed here. So the only change that I made based on last building committee's meeting and comments is we were adding a placeholder just for a potential time extension. We know Emma Connor is saying they need around 2 additional months to complete the project. So we're showing 2 months of additional services for the architect and the OPM to be involved in the project, just as a placeholder. That's not to say that we're going to be extending the duration by 2 months, but this is again a placeholder, worst case scenario. And that, like I mentioned earlier, that brings down if all these PCOs here were approved, including these additional services that are shown here, we would be looking at 66% remaining contingency, or $1.6 million. Any questions on this? Okay, I'll move on to the invoices for the month of May. Typical invoices, we have the general contractor's May payment application, For this amount here represents the reduced amount based on the town council's recommendation of 1,215,371. What that's for is, I'm not going to go over all the details, but it's basically what I went through earlier during the construction progress update. The mock-up was complete, so that's part of that. Slab on grade, slab on deck, metal stair installation, air vapor barrier at the gym, and various items that I went over earlier. Let me know if you have any specific questions on that. We also have Collier's typical monthly invoice of $21,154. That does not change month to month. We have the architect's invoice of $30,066. Bricks, the third-party materials testing company, for $2,500, $2,594. And we have the container rental, same monthly invoicing of $398. I've reviewed all these invoices and I believe that they are consistent with the contract terms, and I recommend that they be voted on for approval recommendations.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if not, then is there a motion to approve the monthly invoice summary for May as presented?
Motion.
Second?
Second,
Okay, I will pull the board. David,
yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well.
Citizen comments. Do we have any citizens on the line? Any future business?
Okay, well, okay, so, right, without hearing any citizen comments, then is there any future business recommendations?
And we're looking at Monday, July 8th for our next meeting.
Okay. All right, so that concludes our open session part of this meeting, and we'll now vote to go into an executive session to discuss strategy with respect to threatened litigation over the community center project from the abutter at 4 Whiting Road. So we need to vote to go into the executive session. The reason why we're doing that is, as I just stated. I will, is there a motion to go into executive session, for the committee to go into executive session?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, we'll take a roll call. David,
yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Okay, so committee members, if you can remain on this Zoom call, and everybody else, and Al, please, if you could stay on the call. I think everybody else, thank you very much. And that will conclude this part of the open part of this meeting.
Bye,
And
everyone.
And we will
Thank you.
remain on the Zoom call. Thank you, everybody.
Need me to stay on or no?
Carl, no, we're all set, Carl. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we've got Ruth, we've got everybody off now?
Yeah, there's just you, me, Al,
I'm sorry,
David, and Barry.
we need to stop recording.